Hello Divination and welcome. In today's tutorial, we'll be creating unique column FAQ designs in Divi. This is the final result we're aiming to achieve. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. All right, so let's start by creating a brand new page. So right now I'm in my WordPress admin dashboard. So I'm going to come over here to pages, click on add new. And the name of this page is just going to be FAQ, since this is about FAQs. And then I'm going to click on use Divi Builder. Right, so for this design, we're going to build everything from scratch. So I'm going to click here on build from scratch. And before we get started, I want to go into my section settings here. So I'm going to click on this gear icon and go to background. Now here we need to add a gradient. So I'm going to click on the second tab and click this plus button. So I'm going to add my first color by clicking here on my first color. Now, if you want to use the exact same colors as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right, so I'm going to move on to my second color here, and I'm going to paste it like that. And then I need to also change the gradient direction. So in fact, you know what? 180 degrees is okay. Now let's head over here to the start position, and this needs to be set to 21%. And now let's head over to spacing. So here we need to add a top padding. So I'm going to click here on spacing, and for the top padding, we're going to set this to 4VW. Now for the tablet and phone, we might as well go in and set this up. It's always a good thing to go in and set up these sizes because we want our websites to look great on all devices. So I'm going to click here on this little icon, this tablet icon, click on tablet, and this is where we're going to change our top padding to 15. And for the phone, we need to set it to 24. So I'm going to click here on the phone and set this to 24. All right, so now that we've changed all our sizes, the next stage now is to add our bottom padding. So I'm going to go back to the desktop here, and for the bottom, I'm going to set this to 2VW. So pretty much that's all we need to do here. Let's save, and then now it's time to add our column structure. So what we're going to go with here is pretty much one column. So I'm going to click on this plus button and set my column. Now, before we go in and add our modules, we also need to add some settings to our column spacing. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to close this and click on my row settings. So this time I'm going to go into my column settings, and I'm going to go into design and then click on spacing, because here we need to add our right padding. So I'm going to set this to 1VW, and might as well set up our tablet views. So I'm going to go in now and click on this little icon and set my tablet and phone. So for tablet and phone, this is going to be 3VW. Then I'm going to do the same here on the phone as well. And then back over here on my desktop. All right, so let's go ahead and save. And now it's time to add our text module. So I'm going to click here on this plus button, and we are going to search for it first and select it. Right, so we need to start off by giving this a title, and also we need to add some dummy text in there. So I'm just going to delete this and add my lorem text. And then here we need a title. So we're just going to say frequently asked questions. Now, this title here needs to be set to heading 2. So I'm going to highlight it, click on this drop down and set this to heading 2. Now it's time to customize our colors. So let's go ahead and do that by coming over here to the design tab. So here we're going to start off with our text color, and we're going to set this to white. So I'm going to come over here to my eyedropper tool and then just drag this all the way here to the top to make it white, just like how it is here in the display. Okay, so moving on, we need to set the text size. So I'm going to come over here, and the font we need here is called Actor. I'm going to select it. Now let's set our text size. So over here, we're going to set this to 1.5 VW. And then the letter spacing is going to be 1 pixel. And the text alignment is going to be center. So I'm going to scroll all the way down here and set my text alignment to center. Now it's time to work on our heading text. So the easiest way to do this is just to hover over here on the heading, and then you just click on this brush tool. So this will take you straight to your heading 2. So over here now, I'm going to set my font, and we're going to use Verdana for this. So I'm just going to search for it, and there it is. I'm going to select that. And we also need to set our font weight. So I'm going to set this to semi-bold. And we also need to set our color. So I'm going to come over here to add color. And this is going to be an off-white color. Right, now it's time to set our sizes for our headings. So I'm going to come over here and for our normal desktop, we're going to set this to 3VW. And we also need to set the sizes for the tablet and the phone. So we might as well do that here by clicking here on this icon, clicking on tablet, and then I'm going to add my size. And that's going to be for my desktop. And oh, in fact, you know what? The desktop is 3, the tablet is going to be 5, and then the phone is going to be 6. There we go. So as you can see here, this is looking definitely way much better. Now we also need to add some letter spacing. So let's go ahead and do that by coming over here. And our letter spacing is going to be 7 pixels. And we also need to add our line height, and we're going to set our line height to 1.8 so that it becomes easier to read. So if you take a look here on the 3 views, you can see now this is much easier to read, and that looks way much better. Now for the line height, I'm not sure if you noticed that it's quite high on the tablets and the phone, so we need to go in and adjust that. So I'm going to come back over here and click on this little icon. Then on the tablet, we can see the space here is a bit too much. So let's bring this down to about 1.6. And then on the phone, I'm going to bring it down to 1.5. There we go. So that's much better now. So the next stage now is to adjust our sizing. So I'm going to come over here and we are going to set our width here to 100%. Next, we're going to come over here to spacing and customize our margin. So here on the margins, we're going to set this to 1.5 just to give this a bit of breathing space there on the top. So our top margin is going to be 1.5, and then our bottom margin is going to be -5 VW. Next, we're going to come over here to our bottom padding, and we're going to set this to 0 VW. And then for our left and right padding, we're going to set this to 7 VW. So I'm going to activate my chain here because the value is going to be on both sides. Now it's time to add another divider. So I'm going to save this. And the next divider we're going to add here is going to be a yellow divider. So I'm going to click on this plus button and search for my divider. And here it is. I'm going to select it. And let's go straight away to our design. Click on line, and I'm going to add my color in here. And this is just going to be a yellow. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to use the exact same colors, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right, so for our divider weight, I'm going to set this to, in fact, let's come over here to sizing because that's where the setting is. So by default, it's set to 1 pixel. Let's set this to 4. So we want it slightly thicker. And then for our width, we're going to set this to 12% because we don't want this spanning the whole width. So I'm going to set this to 12%. And then we need to center it. Next, we need to head over here to spacing because we need to add a top margin. So I'm going to set my margin here to -1 VW. And on the phone, in fact, why don't we take a look and see what it looks like on the phone? So I'm going to go to tablet and phone. And you can see here, this doesn't look great. It's coming over here to our text content. So let's set our top here to 10 VW. So now this is spaced correctly. There we go. So that's all we need to do here. Let's save. Next, we need to add another column. So I'm going to add a single column here. And before we add any modules, let's head over here to our settings. And in the settings here, I'm going to start off by working on my gutter width. So I'm going to click here on sizing and then use custom gutter width. I'm going to set that to yes. And then I'm going to set this to 1. Now the gutter width is the space between the columns. So I'm just going to make sure that there's no spaces there. Next, I need to set my width. Currently, it's set to 80%. We want this to be 100%, and also on the maximum width, it needs to be set to 100%. Now, let's head over to our spacing and add a bit of breathing space to our rows. So I'm going to come all the way down here to spacing, and here we're going to add a top margin of 3 VW and a bottom margin of 11 VW. Go ahead and add it here. Now moving on, let's add our padding. So I'm going to add 0 VW, and for the bottom padding, I'm going to set this to 11 VW, and then the left and right needs to be 5 VW. And a quick way of adding your left and right paddings, you just activate this chain and the value gets applied to both sides. Right, so the next stage is to go into our column settings. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon and let's add a background gradient for this. So I'm going to click here on the second tab, click on the plus button, and we are going to start adding our colors now. So the first color I'm going to add is going to be a yellow. So I'm going to paste it in here. And the second color here is going to be transparent. And to add a transparent color here, you just need to click on this icon here. So our first color is yellow and our second color is transparent. Now let's head over here to our gradient type. We're going to set this to radial. And then our radial direction is going to be top left. So I'm going to come over here and set this to top left. Now let's set our start and end position, and for our start and end position it's going to be 19. So I'm just going to add my values like that, and you can see here in the preview that we have this beautiful shape there in the top left. Next, let's head over here to our design tab, click on spacing, and we are going to add a top padding of 0 VW, and for the left and right we are going to set this to 1 VW. So I'm going to activate my chain. Now let's head over here to the border, and on the border here we're going to add 1 VW on all corners. So that's going to be our rounded corners, and you can see here as soon as I've entered that we have our rounded corners there. Okay, so moving on, we need to also add our transform. So I'm going to go all the way down here to transform, and we need transform translate. So I'm going to click here on the second tab. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add values on both axes. So if I need to disable this because the value I'm going to add here is not going to be the same. So on the Y axis, I'm going to add 4 VW, and then on the bottom, we're going to leave it as it is. Now the next stage is to add our hover. So I'm going to click on this arrow that's pointing up. So I'm going to click here on hover. So on hover, on tablet and phone, so we need to make sure we click here on this little icon. So on the tablet and the phone, we are going to set this to 0 VW, and we're going to do the same here for the phone as well. So notice that this is only happening on the hover. Okay, so we're going to go back over here to desktop. So the next stage is, since we've made a lot of changes to the first column, we need to duplicate it because we're going to use it a few times. So I'm going to go back to content. Then I'm just going to switch back over here by clicking this arrow. So we're going to duplicate this about 4 times. There we go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stagger these because we don't want them all in a straight line. So I'm going to go here now to my second column, click on design, transform, and transform translate. Now this one here is set to 4 VW. So I'm going to set this one here to 2 VW. We'll go back. I'm going to go to column 3, click on design, transform. Now here, we're just going to reset this. So I'm going to click here on transform translate. Then I'm just going to add a 0. Oops. So just make sure that this one is reset. There we go. And then back over here, let's move on to column number 4. And column number 4 is going to be 2 VW. So let's go in and make that change. So I'm going to click on this gear icon, design, transform, and just want to make sure that that is 2 VW. There we go. And then finally, column 5 needs to be 4 VW, and that should be okay. Let's just confirm that by coming over here to transform and transform translate. So you can see that is set to 4 VW. So that one is great. Now we need to add a toggle to module 1. So let's save this. All right. So the next stage is to add our toggle. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to my wireframe view. And then I'm going to go into my column 1 here, click on this plus button and search for toggle. And here it is. I'm going to select it. So you want to start by adding your title. And in fact, before we do that, I'm just going to switch over here to the front end. And for the title here, I'm just going to say, how do I track my package? And then in here, I'm going to add my content. So I'm going to paste it like that. So moving on the state here, we want to make sure the state is set to closed. And then let's head over here to the background. So here on the background, we want to add an image. So I'm going to click on this plus button. And we need an image which has the question mark. I think it's this one here. So I'm going to click upload an image. And then what I'm going to do next is I am going to add a blend mode. So I'm going to come over here, click on the drop down, and my blend mode here is going to be soft light. Now, regarding the image here, you can add whatever image that you want. So it doesn't really matter what image you use here, or you can design this without an image in the background. All right, so now let's add our icon color. So I'm going to come over here to design icon, and because we've used yellow here, let's also add our icon color and make it yellow. Now we need to adjust the icon size. So to do that, we want to activate use custom styles for icon size, and this needs to be set to 34. So we want it nice and big. And for the tablet and phone, this needs to be set to 20. So I'm going to add into 20 in here and do the same for the phone. Right. So now that I've entered my size, you can see now it's nice and big, and my default here is it's closed. Now, what we need to do next is to style the toggle backgrounds. So to do that, I am going to come over here to toggle. So we need to start here by adding our first color, and this is the toggle background color. So I'm going to click here on this eyedropper tool and paste my color. And then over here, we also need to add our color for the closed state. So I'm going to enter my color here, and this is just an off-white color. Now, while we're there, we also need to add a hover color. So let's go ahead and add hover by clicking on this arrow that's pointing up. And then I'm going to add my color in here. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to use the exact same colors as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. Okay, so moving on, let's go ahead and add our colors for our text. So the colors that we're going to start off with here are here on the title text, because as you can see, our title text here doesn't look great. So that's what we need to make adjustments to right away. So obviously here, because we have a dark color, we need to add a lighter color so we can read this easier. So I'm going to come over here and add my color. So we're going to do the same here and add our title color. Right, so for our title color here, this needs to be this dark gray. And then for the hover, we are going to set this to a recent color that we used here, and it's this off-white color. Now let's adjust our font. So here we're going to set this to actor, and I know I've used this font size before. And we also need to set our alignment to the left. Now we need to set our size, and here is going to be 1.5 VW. So make sure you set it to VW, not pixels. So now we need to go back to the toggle. So we need to set up the closed title text settings. So here on the closed, we want to add a very dark color. So I'm going to click here on the eyedropper tool and add my color like that. And also making sure that our font here is actor and our alignment is to the left. And also our size is 1.5 VW. Now let's go to the body text. So I'm going to scroll down here, click on body text, and we need to set our font here as well. It's going to be actor. Our alignment is going to be left, and our body text color is going to be off-white. So I'm going to click here on my recent and choose my off-white color. Now let's set our size, and this time it's going to be 0.9 VW, and then our line height is going to be 1.8. Next, let's head over to our spacing, because here we need to make some adjustments to the top margin, and it's going to be 1 VW. And then for our top and bottom padding, we're going to set this to 2 VW. And notice that I've activated my chain there, and then my left and right padding is also going to be 2 VW. And I'm going to activate my chain as well. Next, we're going to head over here to the border, and we're going to set this to 1 VW. Right, so the next stage is to add a box shadow. So I'm going to go with this option here, and let's make a few adjustments here on the box shadow blur strength. So I'm going to come over here, and in fact, you know what? It's okay at 18 pixels. And now I'm going to go to my box shadow spread strength. So as you can see, it's a bit too much here. So I'm going to set this to -4. And then I'm also going to add my color here for my shadow. So I'm going to click on the eyedropper tool and paste my values between the brackets. Right, so that's looking much better now. So let's go ahead and save this. So what we need to do now is to duplicate this a few times and then drag this to the right columns. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to duplicate this a few times, and then I'm just going to drag this to the columns. So this saves us time to redesign each and every one of these modules. So as you can see now, my layout is looking great. All you have to do now is to go in and edit this content. And to edit this content, all you have to do is to head over here to your module settings, and then you can just change your title here and change the body text as well in here. And then once that's done, you now have a complete design which has all the different titles and the different content. Okay, so let's take a look now at our final design. So as you can see here, when I hover, we now see our background color, and we also see that shape in there. And if I click here on this plus button, it now reveals all my content. All right, so go ahead, try it out and see if you can achieve this design. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.